Welcome to Running Out of Space, a podcast about collectors, their collections, and how they make room for it all in their lives. My guest today is wrestling superstar Matt Cardona, who is famously known as Zack Ryder in the WWE, but known notoriously for his vast collection of wrestling action figures. Considering the near 40 years worth of wrestling toy releases out there, Matt has a historian's knowledge of the space, and coupled with his major accomplishments in the ring, demonstrates devotion at its finest. So here we go, running out of space with the $1,000 broski.
How's it going?
Matt Cardona.
How are you, man?
Good, how you been?
I'm good.
Thanks for making the time.
No problem.
So you're coming off an eventful week, so I appreciate you sitting down with me to talk some toys.
No problem. It's all good.
Pick up anything recently?
Oh, I mean, I'm getting stuff every day. So
Yeah?
Every day something, yeah.
Do you have anything that came recently that you've been maybe eyeballing, or is it just you're kind of keeping up the collection at this point?
Yeah, nothing necessarily special.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff I have is, some of it's worth a lot of money, some of it's valueless. It's a big mixture of things.
Well, they were not lying. You are the Michael Jordan of wrestling figures.
Oh yeah, I know that.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. And I feel like a lot of people, at least like the people that I know or I come into contact with, they don't kind of see the artistry that goes into some of these figures,
right.
Especially some of the stuff that I've seen in your collection, like especially stuff from the 80s. Before like computers kind of were able to scan bodies and stuff, there were people really sculpting these things.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And I feel like, especially like in the 80s is when that really took off. You see like toys, action figures specifically in the 70s, you see they're kind of all sculpted out of the same body. Maybe there's a different paint job, a slight different tweak in maybe the facial features. But around the 80s, I feel like they really got to that likeness. And I remember with the WWF figures, when those came out, those really looked like the wrestlers that you saw on TV. And they were just so mind-blowing. Like you needed to have them all. The poses were fantastic. And it just didn't stop, especially with the wrestling figure kind of space. The technology behind them has just gotten better and better and better. I mean, now it's like photorealism. It's amazing.
Yeah. So, I grew up in the 80s and early 90s. So I had the LJN figures, which are these bigger rubber figures. And then in the early 90s, the Hasbros, which are smaller and they have the action features. But it wasn't until I was an adult and really, not only just in the wrestling business, but kind of, I don't want to say I'm in the toy business, but I'm kind of there. I get the Major Wrestler podcast. I'm now producing my own action figures, whether being, involved or actually the company doing them. So I really do appreciate the old school method, which was, hand-drawn figurines, which turned into 2-ups and then scaled down. Now, listen, anyone who does it on the computer is still talented. They're still an artist, right? 100%. But I've tracked down drawings, the original drawings of some of my favorite figures. So it's cool to have like the figure and then to have the original hand-drawn, representation of it.
Yeah, and you go deep. I've seen that you bought prototypes. Where do you track these down? Are these eBay buys?
Yeah, if you type in insert toy company prototype on eBay, you'll find some things, right? Yeah. But the majority of the stuff I found is, through connections that I've made or on Facebook groups or Instagram. And it's like this underground market. I was a diehard wrestling figure fan my whole life. And even as an adult, still collected the figures. But once you have a line, it's like, well, what else do? You have them, let's say you have them all out of the package. Okay, well, maybe I'll get them all in the package. And then what? It's over. Right. So I was able to, and I'm not the only person who've done, I've known about these prototypes for years. I'm in these message boards and stuff like that. But once I started going down that route of getting pre-production items, it really, it changed my whole collection for the better, I guess, but not for my wallet, because they're very, very expensive.
Yeah. Who were some of these sellers that you would find prototypes from? Are they people who worked maybe in the toy business?
Yeah. So old, whether it be Hasbro or LJN employees. Yeah. They're cleaning out their garage or their basement and they have this box full of shit or what they think is shit. And sometimes it is shit, right? Sometimes it is garbage. It is just the mass produced figure, right? But some of these times it's a hand painted prototype that was in a commercial or catalog, right? Or sometimes it's a figure that never came out, only made it to the prototype stage. So it's wild what's out there. And at the same time, you have to be careful because not only are these toy designers, very, very talented, but these customizers are very, very talented. And with 3D printing and these great artists, it's easy to be fooled if you don't know what you're looking for.
Have you been fooled recently?
I have not, no.
Yeah, I mean, especially, I guess, the stuff in the 80s that wasn't exactly perfect. A skilled artisan of today can easily get maybe, I don't know. But then again, the sculpt, though, how would like a bootlegger do that properly? How would the counterfeit?
Because nowadays people are just so talented. There's so much more. Like the technology is unbelievable. So for instance, Hasbro, they made like these little plastic figures, the wrestling figures, but then there were these 2-ups. They were double the size, literally 2-ups. And those were not meant for fans. They were meant to be destroyed. That's what they sent to, China to get the colors of the paint down and everything. And then they would scale them down. Yeah. But now people are able to make these 2-ups, for instance. They just know how to do it. And it's, if you're not, I don't even want to say I'm an expert but if you haven't dealt with that space before, it's easy to be fooled, but some guy just made it, Yeah. So I have real ones in my collection, and then I do have fake ones in my collection, but I know they're fake. It's like, for instance, there's one behind me, like someone made of me. So obviously I know it's fake. Yeah. They put me on like $1 million man body, but it looks pretty damn good.
Yeah. There's also a whole kind of novelty market with collectors. There's always like a tongue-in-cheek kind of thing, like, especially with like Masters of the Universe people, there's so many bootlegs of those.
Right.
It's almost fun to collect those kind of offshoots and those really bad bootlegs that don't look anything like them, but
sure,
just kind of that comedy aspect of it. I have spent some time collecting action figures. I moved on to like Japanese vinyl stuff and kind of the more like art toy type of stuff, but I still love action figures. What was the divide between I love these things and I'm going to start collecting these things and really prizing them?
Yeah. So as a kid, obviously, like probably the majority of kids, I played with my toys, and there was nothing wrong with that. And then as I got older and as kids my age got older, it wasn't really cool to be playing with toys. And, I stopped playing with really everything except for wrestling. I still kept the wrestling figures and collected the wrestling figures and played with the wrestling figures, because to me, that was my way of, continuing my fandom. I would create these figure federations and make my own champions and make up, storylines in my head, and I get to act it out or play it out with these figures. But I certainly wasn't telling people about that, whether I was later in elementary school or junior high or high school, and then like I would just buy them or, collect them through my youngest brother, but they'd really be for me, or I'd go to Toys R Us and I'd be embarrassed. I'd ask for a gift receipt, stuff like that. And it wasn't until I actually made it into wrestling, I actually became a real professional wrestler, where I just didn't care what people from my high school or other people thought. I'm like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to proudly get this stuff and collect this stuff. And it took a while for me to actually have the I guess, real estate to display it. I was living in apartments in New York, and there's not much room to display these figures, but I had them all. And I'm a big out of the box collector. I think figures should be, like you said, they're art, right? So you need to see the front, the back, everything. So I would take things out of the box and just have them in Ziploc bags and totes, whether they be in my parents' attic or my closet in my apartment. And then I moved to Florida about 5 years ago, and I said, that's it. I'm getting a toy room and I'm displaying all this stuff proudly.
So they were all kind of in storage. Were you living in Manhattan, or I know you're from Long Island?
No, I was living on Long Island, but still like an apartment where it was a 2-bedroom apartment. There was 2 of us in there. There wasn't room for a toy room,
No, I'm in that situation right now. I have a 6-year-old and my toy room became her room. So I feel
right. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm dreading that moment when I get a kid and I have to give up the toy room or the office. I might need a bigger house.
Do you find that there's a lot of collectors in Orlando? Because I'm from Florida, and you just find people who are into collecting a lot of stuff down there for some reason. I don't know if it's like hoarding tendencies or not, but there's just like a big collectors market in Florida. And I imagine, especially in Orlando, because of like the theme kind of atmosphere there. Have you found any collectors that maybe are selling some gems that you might have?
So when I first moved down here, I was on this app called Let Go, and I saw this guy who had a storage unit just full of wrestling figures, and he said he was selling everything. So I it's like, is this real or what? And I met up with him, and he said he was selling everything 3 or 4 years ago. He still gets new stuff, and I go there every couple of months to see what his inventory is, because he just always just gets stuff. I don't know where he gets it. I don't ask questions. I don't know if he's getting stuff off the truck at Walmart or what, but he's getting older stuff too. And I always leave with something,
Yeah. I saw a video of you picking up a collection of all carded, like the not the big bendy ones, but the little tiny guys. What was those?
Oh yeah, the Hasbros.
The Hasbro. I saw a video of you picking up a whole weight, like the complete, every single figure.
I'm an out of the box collector. I had them all, mint and loose. But I always told myself, okay, one day I do want them all, but I don't have the patience to track them down one by one. I want to buy them all in one shot. And luckily, like with the Major Wrestling for a podcast that I have this outlet to say what I need. Yeah. And it's like a double-edged sword, because, people will find me, but then sometimes they try to upcharge me. You know what I'm saying? So you got to take the good with the bad. And someone was coming down to Disney World with their family. They were driving down and they had the whole collection. And I met up with them in the gas station that's in Disney World. And we made a little deal in Disney World, actually.
Amazing.
And that's not the first time I made a transaction in Disney World.
Well, that's the place. For some reason, Florida, all the antique shops, like they're kind of like stocked. You can find some really good things randomly in Florida.
Yeah.
But back to the artistry thing of it. Did you keep all those figures in cards? Because sometimes like the blister card is really pretty looking, like the present.
Oh, those for sure. Those I kept. I got them in protective packaging, but those right now I don't have the real estate for that, so they're just in boxes in my like my crawl space. But one day I'm hoping I'll get a bigger house and I'll be able to display them proudly. But like I said, I have that whole set in the box. I have them out of the box. Those are my favorite figures, because those are the ones I really grew up on and remembering seeing in the stores. And at that time, this is before the internet, right? So you didn't know what was coming out next. You couldn't pre-order things. There was no San Diego Comic-Con. So you would walk into a Toys R Us, like, holy shit, there's this new set. Like there's this magic that can't be recreated. So I have fond memories of that. So those are the prototypes that I go back and get, things that never came out, things that were in magazines or JCPenney Christmas catalogs and stuff like that.
Even stuff like, back to your statement about before the internet, the only real way that you would know what was out is you go to the toy store, you see the display, but then you have to turn around and see what else is out there.
Exactly.
And oftentimes some would not make it to production.
Exactly. Right. That's right. But so the prototype that I'm probably most well known for is this Greg the Hammer Valentine figure. It was in a WWF magazine, like a 1990 magazine. You flip open the cover and there's this Toys R Us ad showing all the new tag teams, and he's featured, and you go to Toys R Us, everyone's there except for him. He's even on the back of the box. They say his name. So I just assumed that I never was able to find him until years later. I think some toy magazine comes out and says it never came out, blah, 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 blah. Fast forward, almost 30 years. That's what I find on Facebook from some guy who worked for Hasbro selling his collection. Yeah. He posts this bird's eye view of this cardboard box, and like a psycho hawk, I could spot his foot sticking out. And, I had to make a deal for the entire lot, and it was a lot of money. Yeah. And I don't buy things to flip things, but in that instance I did, because there was this huge pre-production lot. He wasn't selling it piece by piece. You had to buy the whole thing. So I bought the whole thing, kept what I wanted, and flipped the rest, and ended up making money.
Oh, good. I mean, you got it. I mean, sometimes you have to, I spoke about this with other guests. Sometimes you just have to kind of feed the passion with the collection. I mean, there's no shame in that.
No, absolutely not. No, but I'm not someone who buys things thinking like, oh my God, this is going to be worth money someday. Is it nice that my collection does have value? Sure. But there are some things that are completely valueless, and I love them.
Yeah. Why were there so many Tatankas in the small line? I know
there's two Tatankas. This is a funny. So the first Tatanka comes out, whatever. And then the second one, it was supposed to be a Brutus the Barber Beefcake, and he leaves the company and they just replace him with the same old Tatanka, whatever. But that Brutus the Barber Beefcake that never came out, I have it. I have it in my collection. It was on some wrestling figure message board that some guy, he was a kid when he got it. He told the story of how he got it, and he even had the carding for it. It was some sort of sample that I don't know exactly what it was, but it's hand painted. I think it was some sort of mock-up, but he put it on this message board, and just people were just hating on him, saying it's fake, custom. And I just, something about me, like, I'm like, I don't know, this guy's story like adds up, and like the figure isn't good enough to be a good custom. It's like really, really like sloppy and it's played with. I'm like, and it was I don't want to say it was a low price, but compared to what prototypes go for, it was $2,000. So that's not, it was worth it for me to take the gamble and do the research later, just in case someone else jumped on it. So I did all the research, all the due diligence. I was able to get, I mean, man, I could talk for hours with all the information I was able to find on it to prove that it is real. Yeah. And now I have it, and it's something that never came out. And that's like one of the prized pieces of my collection. That's
amazing. And you get known for that now. Now it's kind of people, because a collector like you has it, it's legitimized, and people know that it's a real piece that's actually part of the grander line.
Exactly. And like, I call myself the Michael Jordan of wrestling figure collecting, but it's a gimmick. It's a joke. I don't think I have the best wrestling figure collection. I don't think anybody can have a better collection than anybody else, because it's all like what matters to you. Right. Sure. And, when I get this stuff, I don't post it to brag. Look what I got. And you don't. I post because I want someone to know it was supposed to come out. I want to share that with people, because I know for a fact there are some things out there that people don't share, and that's fine. That's their business. Right. Like, I've seen things that I know aren't made to the public. But I just want to show it off in the sense, like, I want people to appreciate it, not like, look what I have and look what you don't have. That's not what I'm going for.
I mean, you ooze passion for it, especially in your podcast and every interview where you're talking about it, you light up. I mean, it's not hard to tell that you're legitimately enthralled with toys in general and wrestling toys. But what was it like when you got your first one made of you?
Oh man, I mean, super cool. I remember where I was when I saw the prototype picture, and luckily that was by this company called Jax, and they were very I don't want to say like wrestler friendly, but I don't want to say like Mattel's not wrestler friendly, but Jax would, if the wrestler wanted the hand painted prototype, they would send it to them. You know what I'm saying? Like, Mattel, if you want the prototype, good luck, you're not getting it. You know what I'm saying? Trust me, I've asked. Yeah. But Jax would send me all my hand painted prototypes, so it's cool to have those things.
Yeah. And how many do you have like 10 by now? You have a lot of figures of yourself.
By now I probably have like 20, 25, like different scales, mini guys, little buddy things, maybe a little more than I've been fortunate. Like someone like John Cena gets like 30 in a year. I've gotten like 30 over like 20 years, but hey, I still love it. I'm still fine with it. And to this day, I still light up every time I get a new figure.
I saw that there's one, where it was like the retro.
Yes.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. And now, since leaving WWE, I've been able to branch out and work with all these toy companies, like something like Super 7, who I think make the best toys out there, the most detailed toys. So they're doing major wrestling figure podcast figures, and to be working with them, it's been like so amazing, because with Mattel, they make your figure and it comes out, and that's cool. You have no say. You have no input. If it's missing a logo on the boots, it's missing the logo on the boots. Or, for example, Super 7, like, I sent them all the pictures of my gear, all these reference shots that I took, and then they sent me the first prototype, and like, I literally sat on my floor with the gear and the figure, and I made notes like, no, this is wrong. This is wrong. This is wrong. Not to be annoying, but to make these the most detailed figures possible, because Super 7 cares that much.
I was going to bring Super 7 up because I've actually collected some of their other stuff, and I came across those figures. They are great. Their attention to detail is great. Their passion is unparalleled. They even have like the little figure. Like, you have your toy has a figure.
Yes. Yeah. So I was like, because they said, like, what do you want to come with? So I was like, I want to come with my podcast microphone. I want to come with these dog tags we come out with. Yeah. Wouldn't it be cool if we came with the figure? So like, it's going to be awesome. So those aren't actually out yet. Hopefully by like October time, they'll actually be shipping, because, this Super 7 is a small company, right? So what they do is they put up like an open pre-order. They're not just going to make all these figures and sit on this inventory, right? So which is smart. I think it's a great business model. So they see who really wants this, then they order that. And then what usually happens with Super 7 is that once the figure gets released, there's all this like, oh my God, I didn't order this. And then the secondary market price goes through the roof. Yeah. So I ordered some extras for myself, of course.
Nice. Nice. And what about the Zombie Sailor? Did I say that right?
Yeah, Zombie Sailor. He's somebody who
like the retro style. I like that one a lot too.
Yeah, and talking about like the artistry, he tracked down the original Hasbro artist to do these old school drawings to match, so it matches the old Hasbro's. And I think that's a really cool, he didn't have to do that. He could have got anybody to draw these up, but he got the original Hasbro artist to draw these up. So they're as authentic as they possibly could be.
It's incredible. It's incredible. So you were, and I heard you earlier say that you're actually running out of space. So you're actually the perfect guy to talk to.
No, I maxed out.
Yeah.
I maxed out.
Is there anything that you still have on the list that's just kind of your holy grail?
Not really. I mean, at this point, if a prototype came out of something that was rumored, that'd be cool. Like, for instance, I keep talking about these Hasbro WWF figures, but there was this rumored set for so many years of like the last set that never came out. And about 20 years went by and the heads popped up on the internet. And then a couple years went by and then the drawings popped up. So there's this one wrestler, Diesel, and I have the drawing and I have the head. And if the prototype figure is out there, I would love to see it, but I haven't seen it yet. I don't even know if it's out there. I don't know if I got that far.
And do you comb eBay every day? Like, take me through what happens with you when you're.
I'm on eBay multiple times a day because I have my saved searches, and you got to check those throughout the day because they'll send you the email alerts, but those aren't so up to date. You know what I'm saying? By the time they send you an alert, if it's a hot item, it could be gone already.
Yeah.
So you need to be if you're really that serious about it, you got to be checking your eBay multiple times a day with your saved searches.
And since you are the Michael Jordan, is there a John Starks of wrestling figures? You're next,
well, we have Brian Myers, my podcast partner. He's the Scottie Pippen.
Okay, there you go.
So I don't know who the John Starks is.
Do you know the names of some of these eBay guys that might outbid you?
I don't like particularly know the names, but I do know that the prototype community for wrestling figures is very small.
Yeah,
but they have deep pockets.
Right.
And so if I'm bidding on something on eBay, and this has happened to me before, I know that someone's trying to outbid me to try to flip it on me later on. So that has happened.
Yeah.
Where, I was in this bidding war, I lost, and then the guy tried to flip it on me.
Oh, that's not.
It is what it is. All is fair in love and figure hunting. I get it.
I saw your whole room and I saw like everything's on display. Everything looks fantastic. It's TMNT. Ghostbusters.
Yeah, I got a lot of Ghostbusters, Ninja Turtles, Star Wars for sure. I grew up on the Star Wars, the special releases in the 90s. So I grew up on those Power of the Force 2 figures, which I guess original Star Wars fans hated, but those are the ones I grew up on. And those are, you talk about valueless figures. Those are valueless. I think maybe in 5 years, when it's been 30 years since the special like edition re-releases, I think they might take off then.
Yeah.
But like you can get those figures. You go to any vintage toy store in America and they will have Power of the Force 2 Star Wars figures from the mid 90s for dirt cheap. Yeah. But once I had all those and I had the current, the Black Series, they call them, Star Wars figures, I knew like I needed the original vintage Kenners and I didn't grow up on those. I have no sentimental value to those, but I respect what they represent. So I had to go back and get every single one of them. And, those are proudly displayed in my collection, but I have no sentimental value to them. To me, if there was a fire, I'd save the Power of the Force 2 ones, which I could probably get on eBay for $150, as opposed to these, which are probably $150 a figure for most of them.
Are there more wrestling figures? This is probably a silly question. Are there more wrestling figures or are there more Star Wars figures in circulation?
That's a tough one. Maybe it might be tied.
There's a lot of wrestling figures, right?
There's a lot of wrestling figures. There's a lot of Star Wars figures. Yeah. Hard to say. I mean, me personally, I have more wrestling, but in the grand scheme of things, it might be neck and neck.
And who are more voracious about it? Because I saw that you came across this one set and you were stoked on it because Andre on his tights had one strap, and you said there was one edition where there's two straps.
Right.
You were stoked on that set. Is that widespread in the wrestler community? Is that something where the collectors, like, they're really paying that close attention to all those?
100%. Like, and that's the thing with the Major Wrestling for a podcast. It's like, if you listen to our podcast, you're deep. You're in, right? Like, you need to like wrestling enough to listen to a wrestling podcast, but then you need to like wrestling figures enough to listen to a wrestling figure podcast. So if you're listening to us, you're in, and you care about the details. You care if something is the wrong color. You care if the scale is off. And there's a lot of wrestling figure fans who don't listen to us who also care about that stuff.
Yeah.
But then, of course, you know, my niece and nephew don't give a shit if the logos are not there, if they're missing the paint deco, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's cool about wrestling figures because they can make so many additions based on the clothes and based on the certain maybe interview outfit that they were wearing, that you guys were wearing. That's what's so cool, is that you can actually have actual moments with these guys that existed, and you can maybe have a whole, you can have a whole like $1 Million Man collection where it's
right. And a lot of people do that. They pick, like, for instance, the Ultimate Warrior, someone who is very toyetic. And by toyetic, I mean, like, you're walking down that toy aisle, whether you know wrestling or not, that guy just is like, what is that figure? The colors, whatever it is. And that's the thing. Like you said, with wrestling, there's so many different outfits. Like, unless you're like Stone Cold Steve Austin, who's wearing the same thing for 20 years, but even him, you know, he has the different vests, and then he like changes the knee braces up. So that's like with Star Wars. Okay. There's 3 movies that have Darth Vader in it, really, or maybe 4 with Rogue One, or if you count like Revenge of the Sith, 5, but like, and the look is very, very similar. There's like minor differences. So there's only so much you could do, but like literally a wrestler who's on WWE could come out every Raw in a different outfit. You know, so that's 52 outfits in a year, really.
Yeah. And I feel like it's the goal of the toy. Who has the license now? Who makes
Mattel.
So I feel like it's their goal to release every single one, because it sure looks like it.
I mean, they try their best. And Mattel, I think, makes the best wrestling figures of all time because they're the most advanced. And also they've had the license for so long where they have like the biggest roster of guys. So I personally don't collect like current day wrestlers. Like my friends, I don't care about you. I don't have you, because like I need a cutoff. And what I love about collecting is everyone can make their own rules. Yes. So my rule for collecting wrestling figures is that, so I made it to WWE in 2007. So like, I will only get figures that depict 2007 and before that. So like, for instance, if Mattel makes an Undertaker and it's a 2020 version of the Undertaker, I don't want it. But if they make an Undertaker that looks like a 1996 Undertaker, I want it. And that's just my rule.
Is that you don't want to get razzed by your cohorts?
No, it's just like there has to be a limit somewhere, or else I'll just be getting every wrestling figure of all time, and till when? Until I die. What
about the Motu Wrestlers? Are you into that?
So I have them, but I am not really. I'm not a He-Man guy. I just never got into it as a kid. I must have missed it by like a year or two, and thank God, because those figures go for a lot of money, and they're very, very detailed, and they keep coming out. And I could definitely tell that'd be something that I would go broke spending money on between the Mattel stuff and the Super 7 stuff. And I'm kind of familiar with it. Like, I know like what Snake Mountain is and He-Man and Skeletor, but that's about it. So the crossover with the WWE figures, I got them, but they're not on display anywhere. They're in Ziploc bags in my garage somewhere, just in case,
I always, I tour with the idea of just having just like a trap jaw collection, just like I spoke about, like just people, like I mentioned how like, some wrestling fans have like just like one character. I tour with that idea of just having one shelf of just trap jaw, but it's just a money pit. I just do not want to jump down right now.
For sure.
And I'm the type that'll spend a couple $100s on toys. I'm nowhere near the level that you are, but if there's something that really looks great, I'm not afraid of the prices, especially these days, but I feel like people don't really take it seriously, especially the stuff that is called action figures. I mean, the posability and just having them around as decoration it livens up a room in a certain way. It gets people talking. There's always people like, they'll point like, oh, I had that as a kid, or, oh, I love that, or who is that? People don't really realize like how, maybe it's our generation, I don't know, but people don't realize how important the action figure is to pop culture.
I mean, nostalgia is in. There's no denying that. And I love that, companies like Hasbro are re-releasing these Star Wars figures, the original Kenner ones, or the Ghostbusters, or Playmates is doing the Ninja Turtles, because like, if you want to get in now, maybe you don't want to spend $500 on an Egon Spengler figure, but they're recreating it. So you could buy it for $20 at Walmart. And, so, and it doesn't devalue the original one.
Yeah.
Which I really appreciate.
If you can get it for retail, usually.
Well, yeah, good luck with that. There's a lot of distribution problems at Walmart and Target, 100%.
Are you the type that's up at like the crack of dawn, waiting for pushing refresh, waiting for a new line at or whatever to drop at Walmart or Target?
Yeah, 100%. Like I'll of course, like if I'm going to a Walmart or Target, I'll always check the figure aisle, but like I'm not somebody who gets in the car and goes to store after store after store, because now it's the easiest time to find figures in stores, but it's also the hardest because there's sites like BrickSeek where you can literally find out what store has what. But you're not the only person on that. Everybody can get beyond that and go, you see, oh, this Walmart 10 miles away has 6 in stock. By the time you get there, they're gone.
Right. Right. Did you go buck wild during 2020 with lockdown and figures? Like, did you?
Oh, I mean, not more than I normally would, but it was weird because when the whole, the pandemic hit and the lockdowns, I was like, oh man, like Brian Myers and I, we thought our podcast was doomed. Like, who was going to want to be listening to content about wrestling figures, and who's going to be spending money on wrestling figures? But it was the complete opposite. Yeah. The collecting market went through the roof. Yeah. And, our podcast grew, and it's more popular than ever before. And because people, whether they were at home bored or had extra money from not going out or not going out to dinner, I don't know exactly what it was. I think it was a combination of things, but the collectible market, whether it be cards or action figures, it blew up. And will, so many people saying the bubble's going to burst. I don't think it's going to burst. I do think we'll see a little decline, but if you compare now to before the pandemic, it's like night and day.
Yeah, there's always like the ups and downs of any market. Comic books are like that. And, all the stuff that's ultimately, a lot of the stuff is mass produced. It's the stuff that kind of that flies under the radar necessarily, that isn't like the main figure that sometimes sees a little more appreciation. But it's all, again, like it's all what you're into.
For sure.
And if you're doing that, if that's why you're collecting, you're doing it wrong for sure.
Yeah. If you're collecting these things with the hope that you're going to flip your collection one day, like I think you're in it for the wrong reasons. You might be able to, but you're going to be like so nervous and anxious when things go up and down, because that's the market.
Yeah. Do you have the what do I remember? My earliest recollection that I had were the thumb wrestler ones.
Yeah.
Were those the first for WWF?
No, they came out. They came out during that same time. So there were the big LJN guys, and they made these bendies and the thumb wrestlers, and these stretch wrestlers were all like in the same line.
Yeah. Were the stretch ones like Stretch Armstrong? Like
they were like a Stretch Armstrong with it. There was like a powder inside. I don't know, like not like a glue material, like a powder. Yeah. So as a kid, like, my brother and I would like pull them as far as we could, and there'd be powder everywhere. They'd explode. And because of them not lasting, to get them like in the box and to have them in mint condition, it's super hard to do.
Yeah. Were you, when you were a kid playing with the figures, were you like, I want to be a wrestler? Is that?
Oh yeah, 100%. I just never grew out of it.
Yeah. Is that in your family, or are there any wrestlers in your family?
No, I'm first generation wrestler. You know what I'm saying? It was just something I never grew out of. And I always just said, I'm going to be a wrestler. And, when I'm in kindergarten saying it, it's not a big deal. Like, okay, sure, Matt. But when I'm, in 11th grade and having to apply to colleges, and I'm saying, well, I want to be a wrestler, I don't really want to go to college. Yeah. Then my mom, kind of questions it a little differently.
Sure. Yeah. Does she question your collection of figures?
No. I mean, at this point, it is what it is. Like she knew, like if you talk to her, she knew that even as a little kid, like I needed every guy in the set, I needed everybody. I could, if he was on the back of the box, I needed him. Who
was your favorite back in the day?
Macho Man was one of my favorites. Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, obviously, because they were just larger than life, these superheroes, but on the big screen, on your television screen, like you can't go to, and you can't go see Captain America live and in person. You know what I'm saying? Like you can go see Hulk Hogan, and it's not somebody dressed as Hulk Hogan, it's really him. So like, that's something that couldn't be duplicated.
That kind of leads to something I've been thinking about too. Why the wrestling figures were so fantastic and why they're beloved so much. It's because of that. Like they're real superheroes.
Right. And, like, for instance, if you're playing with Ninja Turtles, like it's a cartoon, and yes, okay, they made the movie the over, a 5-year period, they made 3 movies, right? You could watch wrestling Saturday mornings, Sunday mornings, Monday nights, pay-per-view. So there's always more content. Mm-hmm. And if you're a kid playing, you can recreate these things or create your things, as opposed to, Star Wars, there's 3 movies, or, back in the day, there was 3 movies. Then what? Yeah. That's it. With wrestling, it's just every week.
Do you see yourself ever opening up maybe like a toy museum or anything like that? Is that like something that you think you'll eventually get to?
Nah, I don't think so. People ask me about that, or if I'll ever open like a toy store. Like, never. Like I just think it's like way too much work to have like the stock and to keep the stock. And I appreciate all these vintage toy stores that I go in, but it's like, okay, how do you stay up to date with the pricing? How do you get the inventory? Yeah. How do you stay afloat? Like, I'm sure the foot traffic isn't necessarily the best. I'm sure some days you might get a lot. Some days you might get 5 guys. So you might need an online store, but then you still need cool stuff in the store. So it just seems like a big pain in the ass that I don't want to get involved in.
What have there been any of recent where, and I don't want to talk numbers. I want to know a story in which you might have gone a little too deep on one figure and might have gotten yourself into trouble and might have maybe gone off the rails yourself.
Yeah, so the LJNs, those big rubber guys that I was talking about, who made the stretch and the thumbs and the bendies, on the back of they made a title belt for the kids, and on the back of that box there was a Hulk Hogan and a Macho Man. They're about like 10 inches tall, and it's almost like you squeeze the legs and the arms raise up, but they never came out. They were just on the back of the box. And from an LJN employee this past year, I was able to get that Hulk Hogan, and I'll say it was $10,000, and which is a lot of money. And then, when I got it, I kind of regretted it. I really did. It was like $10,000 is a lot. And it's not like I really wanted this as a kid and never got it. I don't know why I did this. I posted about it, and like by chance, somebody hit me up and said like, hey, like I have the matching Macho Man. And I'm thinking like, there's no way. And I'm going back and forth with this guy, and he just has it like on his desk, like at work, like with like a bunch of like valueless toys. And I make him a low offer. He counters with another, and like I got it for so low. So in my mind, it kind of like evened out the Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I can relate to that, because sometimes I'll see something and I just got to have it, man. I just like, and I spiral, and it keeps me up, and I sit in bed and I'm just like thinking about it, and it costs me more mentally than it would financially. I would be able to recover it more financially than mentally if I had it. Does that make sense?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Do there other things like that? Like when you see something and you're like, oh, I don't know if I should get that or not. Do things keep you up like that? Do you spiral?
Yeah, like a lot of these prototypes, like for instance, when I bought that huge lot that had the Greg the Hammer Valentine, like the amount of money, it was a lot of money, right? And at the time I was like, how am I going to justify it to myself spending all this money? In the end, it worked out because I made money and I kept what I wanted. But, I was used to, buying the $20 figure in the store, and now I'm spending thousands. Right. It's a dangerous game to get into once you cross the line into that prototype pre-production world.
Yeah. And do you work once you have you have a significant amount of value to your collection? Do you worry about sunlight? Do you worry about like keeping the windows closed in your toy room? Like,
oh, there is no sunlight in my room. None at all. So there's no sunlight can get in, no sun damage, none of that.
You doing dusting every week or what?
I don't have to do dusting because I have like a lot of the detolfs that have like the glass, the IKEA detolfs have like the glass case. So like, of course, there's a little dust, but it's not too bad.
Those are good cases. I had them.
Great.
I took mine down. Those are the toy cases
because they're affordable and they look really, really nice.
And you can see all around. That's right.
Yeah.
Do you do risers too? You must with the figures.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah. A lot of them have risers, the acrylic risers. But then there's some things in my collection that, you can't even see who's in the row behind them because there's just so much stuff, Yeah.
I know that you are engaged. Congratulations on that.
Oh, thank you.
What does your fiance think about this? She's a wrestler herself. She gets figures of herself. Does she share in the passion?
Oh, absolutely not. She does not share the passion. And luckily when we met, it's when I first moved down to Orlando. So it's not like, I just opened this door and there was this giant toy room. So, she saw me like put up the shelves and then like move a couple of things in from the garage. And then, it was a gradual introduction to my obsession with collecting.
Yeah.
And she's not happy like on days, where let's say I'm on the road for like 4 or 5 days and I'm getting packages every single day and she has to bring them all in. Like she's not happy about that.
Yeah. Are they usually like Target or Walmart, or are they from literally all over?
I would say 99% it's an eBay purchase for sure.
Wow.
but I have my fake eBay name, so like no one's shipping it to they don't know they're shipping it to me. It's a fake name. You gotta be very, very careful.
So they're going to upcharge you.
Well, no, if it's on eBay, and it's a wrestling figure and they're a wrestling fan and they see Matt Cardona, they'll put two and two together. Yeah. And then they'll have my address.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah, of course.
Right. Yeah.
Of course.
So it's all fake names.
Well, let's get into that too, because you also have like some of your costumes are very action figure like you had one that kind of looks like Triclops from He-Man. It kind of has like the flaps that hang down.
Yeah. I always tried to look very, I said the word before, toyetic. I want it to be an action figure form. Like, no, listen, not every outfit I have is going to be made into an action figure. In fact, like a very small percentage does. I mean, do the math. I've been wrestling for almost 20 years. I have like 30 action figures. So very little makeup, but you always have that idea in mind. Like, oh, I wonder how this would look as an action figure. I
like the one that's the American flag.
That one is actually an action figure.
That's sick.
Yeah. And that one was one of my favorites.
And then the $1,000 broski one, was that production?
That was not production. No. We are working on some, but it's coming soon. But we don't have any official ones yet. Just a bunch of customs. We got some official ones coming.
Is that a moniker that it's clearly an ode to the $1 Million Man? But is that a moniker that came from the toys or came from the ring?
The broski came from the ring, and the $1,000 broski came from the podcast. And now I have it trademarked. So now I own it, and we're making some action figures with it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So what was like? I guess this goes back to the question I asked earlier. What was the figure where it's like, wow, I just spent this much on a figure. I'm collecting now. What was that? Was there one specifically that you remember that kind of took you away and into the zone of I'm serious about this now?
Yeah, I mean, so I definitely collected them through my 20s, early 30s, and I had a toy room. I did when I moved to Orlando, but it wasn't until I bought this Macho Man Prototype. That was my first prototype, and it was like a $5,000 figure, and that's when I was like, what am I doing here? And that has since opened up the floodgates to collecting these prototypes. But it was a JCPenney Christmas catalog, and it shows the wrestling ring that comes with Hulk Hogan and Macho Man, and Macho Man's in these green trunks. But when you got it Christmas morning, it was just orange trunks. And that was the one that was released in all the stores, the regular orange trunks Macho Man. So it's not a big deal to get this exclusive ring. But somebody had the prototype, the hand-painted prototype from this JCPenney catalog. And then when I made the decision to buy that, I was like, okay, well, now I'm in. Now I got to track. If I have the Macho Man, now I got to track down those Greg the Hammer Valentine. I got to track down some other things. So that's what kind of, opened up the floodgates.
Yes. I was going to ask, because you can't just have one prototype.
No, you can't.
You got to keep going.
Yeah. And, since then, like I did go a little overboard to get other ones, but my rule for prototypes now is that if they made the actual figure, for instance, like the Bushwhackers, right? Do I need the hand painted prototypes of the Bushwhackers if I have the real figures? I told myself no. So the only prototypes that I have are figures that never came out.
Yeah.
So I had things like the Bushwhackers or like a Dusty Rhodes, it was a beautiful piece, hand painted, looked great, but I don't need those in my collection. So I got rid of those to get money to get the things I do need.
Yeah. What makes for the best wrestling figure?
I mean, nowadays with like figure photography and stuff like that, like you need to have the articulation. It's got to be able to do these wrestling moves in figure form. So people take pictures and they make these nice stop motion videos. It's a pretty crazy. Like the days of just having them standing stationary are over. Most of mine are like that because I don't have the real estate to have everyone in their signature pose or doing moves. So the majority of mine are just standing like just a regular generic figure. Yeah. But yeah, you need the articulation and you need a nice outfit. You need to have if the guy's wearing special entrance gear, needs to come with the entrance gear or a special accessory. So I think like figures made from like special like WrestleMania moments as opposed to like a Raw where the outfits are more elaborate, that makes for a cooler figure.
Any figures that you see out there non-wrestling that you're like, you know what, I love these, aside from Masters of the Universe, but anything new right now? You see them, you're like, oh, I love those, but I'm not going down that hole.
Some of the newer Power Rangers stuff is pretty good now. Super 7 just got that license. Yeah. I can't go down that road. I gotta cut it off somewhere,
Yeah. Do you collect anything else besides toys? Like, do you collect comics or anything else?
No comics, just pretty much toys. And that's really it. But trust me, it's a lot of toys.
Yeah.
I don't need anything else to be collecting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
It gets out of control. I mean, it is out of control. We're already there.
Are there anything, when is your zombie sailor one coming out? Is that out now?
Yeah. No, so they just did the pre-orders for that. That should be out before the holidays, I'm hoping.
Yeah.
The Super 7, those should be out around October-ish. And then the Major Wrestling Figure Podcast, we're working on our own line of figures that we haven't revealed things yet. So maybe at this Comic-Con at home in July, we'll kind of show them off, and we're hoping those will be in everyone's hands before like Christmas time too. So it's a very exciting time to, for us, because, we're working with certain companies to make our own figures, and we're actually making our own as well.
Yeah.
Because not just with making toys, but anything in life, if you want something done, you got to do it yourself, right? You can't wait on others, and you can't, because nobody is going to put you as their first priority. You know what I'm saying? So like, I want to make sure that we make our figures and that we're our number one priority.
But you'd also be surprised, like, the collectors out there, like, you'd be surprised what they really fall in love with. So so the figure podcast, that could be a real cult favorite.
Oh, and that's the thing,
of
like
your fan, but in general, like to have that one kind of special or esoteric type of figure that's not so mainstream. People don't really know Super 7, like, usually go to Target or something, but to have that one is kind of special.
Yeah. And I think when the figures are actually in people's hands, it's going to shock a lot of people, because like I said, whether you're the biggest fan of Matt and Brian or not, that's, I'm not debating that, whether you should or shouldn't be. But when you have the figures in hands, there will be no debating. It is the most accurate action figure of all time. Like, that will be no debate. You cannot debate. Like, I made sure like the button on my vest is they switched the color. That's how crazy and psycho I got.
Yeah.
Okay. So you can say like, oh, I don't like this guy, or this articulation isn't the best. You can say that all you want, but you cannot say that the accuracy is not the best, because it 100% is.
Yeah. Have you seen any of the Mafex toys?
No, I haven't.
So
no, I don't.
Mafex is like, I think they're like an offshoot of Medicom, but they do superhero figures.
Okay.
And they do some movie stuff, but the articulation is like crazy good.
Yeah, if I've seen them, I don't know off the top of my head.
What they can do with articulation is mind-blowing. You could really get them into some great poses. It's no more.
Oh yeah. Now, the butterfly joints in the chest, you get the arms move back. It's pretty nuts. It really is.
And do you feel like wrestling figures are kind of pushing for that hyper articulation more so than the other toys, just because of the demand of the fans and how they want to pose specific figures and maybe some of the action poses?
Well, yeah, I think that it's just very important, because whether you're a kid playing with the figures or like the figure photography, like I mentioned, you got to be able to put these figures in these poses. And, it's great. The leaps and bounds that the toy industry has made since I was playing, where those LJNs, they were just rubber in a pose. Yeah. Now they come with interchangeable heads with different facial expressions and interchangeable hands with different hand poses. I love it.
Yeah. I loved those OG ones, the big bendy ones. Those are really
they're like one of my favorites for sure. But like now, like you get a figure that has like interchangeable heads, or like there's an Ultimate Warrior where like they have a face where like the paint is worn off, like it's mid-match. Like that's
battle
awesome
damage.
stuff. Battle damage. It's great. Yes. That stuff is awesome.
Yeah, it is. And again, back to what we were saying, like having them in different clothes is always cool too, not just the trunks.
Oh yeah. And that's like, you can do like the backstage segments, or like interview segments, or like, even Mattel did for San Diego Comic-Con. They did like the Slim Jim Macho Man from the Slim Jim commercials. And it came in like a Slim Jim, like looking package, like stuff like that is so cool.
Yeah. It's very unique to wrestling in general, like the big personalities that come out. It's cool. Yeah. It's cool. That's one of those things where I've I've definitely seen wrestling figures. I'm like, oh, like maybe I do want a Macho Man shelf, or oh, maybe I do want a Rick Rude shelf. But like, then I see the prices. That's another thing. Wrestling merch has never really been at discount. I remember like when I was shopping on eBay years ago, like before PayPal, even the T-shirts were always premium priced, and the toys, like once they're off the toy shelves, and most of the time they're like $40 to begin with, right? But
No, they have like a Mattel is like a basic line, which is like $9.99, but then like their elite or like $20 or $20 to $30, depending on where you're finding them.
if you
But yeah, like you're right. If you can't find them and they're out of stores, like yeah, those prices go up 9 times out of 10.
yeah, and that has
Yeah.
never I've never seen a dip on that. I don't check the figure prices, but I know just in general, because I check for vintage t-shirts,
Right.
vintage WWF t-shirts. I've always kind of kept my eyes and ears open for that sort of stuff. Those prices have never fallen. So I can only imagine what some of these toys are going for, especially like the bendy ones and then the tiny action ones.
Oh yeah, those prices are through the roof. And you mentioned like the t-shirts. Like I just sold a bunch of my old school shirts and I couldn't believe how much money I made off them. And like I have a big collection of this is gonna sound ridiculous, but foam merchandise, like wrestling
Like
foam merchandise.
Fingers?
Yeah, like the hands, because like they would not only would they make the foam fingers, but like for instance, like Hacksaw Jim Duggan had a 2x4, so it'd be like a foam 2x4 or a Macho Man like green foam cowboy hat.
Yes.
So I have a lot of that stuff and just stacked up in my closet. But like I do know if I wanted to sell them, I can make a lot of money doing it.
Do you have any more of those t-shirts for me?
No, I do not. I'm sorry. Yeah, I sold them all. There's a Instagram account I follow, Wrestling for Sale. They have some great merch. So a lot of the stuff you might see in the next couple of months, you probably bought from me.
You are the Michael Jordan of wrestling figures. How do I become the Bobby Heenan of podcasting?
Ooh, I don't know. I think, well, the Bobby Heenan is something like you don't want to be hated now and appreciated later, right? Because I mean, Bobby Heenan's the best. Yeah. The podcast game, it's such an interesting game because like, I've been in it for 3 years and I still consider myself a newbie. There's always stuff to learn. The things that I have learned is that you got to be consistent. You got, if you say you're coming out Friday mornings, you got to come out Friday mornings. You can't take a week off. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And authenticity is key, but you already know that people, they want to listen to you. They want to listen to your passion. They don't want some BS, you just got to be yourself and be honest. And I think that's what people really appreciate about us, love us or hate us, we're ourselves. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So that's one thing I would say is like consistency and transparency and authenticity for sure.
Okay. So here we go. MJ of wrestling action figures. I need to know which one of these Air Jordans is the best one.
Okay. Listen, I wish I was the Michael Jordan of Michael Jordans. I do have a couple of Jordans in my collection, but woof.
This will be even better. Okay.
Those are pricey.
Okay. So we got the Travis Scott Air Jordan 6 in British khaki. And look, we got the glow in the dark bottom.
So you're a sneaker guy?
I'm a lot of thing guy. I'm like a collector. I've always loved sneakers. I've always loved toys. Comic books too, t-shirts. I'm just a borderline hoarder. Like it's that.
Yes. My fiance thinks I'm a hoarder. She doesn't understand though. Like I'm not hoarding. I'm collecting. My garage, I have a 2-car garage that you can't even walk in because it's I call it like my FOMO garage. It's like stuff that won't fit in my toy room that I don't think is good enough to be in my toy room, but I don't want to not have it. Yes. Whether like I'm afraid it will go up in value or whether I'm afraid I'll want it eventually. So if there's things that like in store, like for instance, Super 7 makes these awesome Ninja Turtles, right?
Yeah.
I have them all so far, not on display, just in my garage out of like fear that I will want them on display one day, because right now I don't have the real estate to have them on display because I have the original Playmates. I have the new NECA stuff. So it's hard for me to justify these Super 7s, which are better versions of the Playmates, but I still have them in my garage just in case I have more room, because then I would display them. My head is all messed up.
You would be up at night saying to yourself, I need to have those if you did not have them. I get it.
100%. Yeah. 100%.
You have the most badass Turtles ones I've seen are the black and white NECAs. Have you seen those?
Oh, those I do not have.
Those are sick because they're based on the drawing.
Those are some of the earlier NECAs, because at first NECA didn't have the rights to the movie and cartoons, so they were just doing comic stuff.
Yeah.
So I do have the colored in comic figures, and those were a lot of money to buy.
Yes.
But yeah, those black and white ones are expensive too. I do not have those. I think I have a Playmates version. Playmates did it a couple of years ago. I have those, which were like at Walmart for like $30, I think.
That's amazing. The Turtles line was another thing. I guess that's for another podcast, but let's get back to it because I know you're going to. All right. So we got the Travis Scott Air Jordan 6s.
Okay.
The dark bottom, British khaki color. Okay. We have the Union Air Jordan 4. All right. This is specifically for the boutique shop Union.
So do you wear these or you just collect them?
I'm going to get to wear them. No, I don't. I wear them. I just got these.
Okay.
But I need some help from the MJ.
Sure.
Or the Air Jordan 3 Black Cement. And this is an OG colorway. This is actually Jordan wore a model like this on the court. Okay.
Those are my favorites for sure right there.
These are yours?
I would say those, yeah.
These are mine too.
Yeah, I like those.
All right.
Yeah.
Good.
We do live podcasts, like live shows, which it's more than just me and Brian just sitting with microphones. It's these extravagant events with like, sometimes we have wardrobe changes. We have all these like surprise run-ins and stuff like that. But I got custom Jordans for the show we did last month. And I was like, all right, I have these $700 custom Jordans for this show. It says like Major Wrestling Podcast Live 8 on them. Well, I can't wear them after Live 8. What am I gonna do with them?
Yeah, you can. You could. Like, anybody who can, you can.
Yeah. So now they're just in my closet with a one-time wear. I'll probably end up getting Live 9 ones and Live 10 ones and wasting all this money.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've actually seen a lot of wrestlers become sneakerheads. I know Hogan became a brief sneakerhead.
There are a lot of sneakerheads. And listen, I get it. I appreciate it, but I cannot go down that route. There's a couple Ghostbuster sneakers that I just have in my garage out of FOMO, still in the box. I'll never wear them. Yeah. I actually think they're like hideous sneakers, but like I needed to get them because I'm psychotic.
That's the thing that's what I was trying to get you to say. Sneakers are the one thing that you just can't go down the road for.
I can't. Listen, I appreciate it. I respect it. Even trading cards, I just kind of got into recently, and I'm like, I'm almost regretting it because I only do like the PSA graded ones. I'm not a raw guy. I don't want to submit it myself. I don't want to take that gamble. Mm-hmm. So I found this guy who is the Michael Jordan of wrestling figure cards. Mm-hmm. He lives in Orlando. And I went to his house. I wasn't sure if I was going to get killed or what. Right. But I went with $6,000 cash, and I bought like a bunch of cards, like a Macho Man rookie card, PSA graded, stuff like that. And I have them in a safe not on display anywhere, like in a safe in my house, like almost as currency, as an investment.
Hey, you never know when doomsday is going to happen, and you need to buy some gas with a Macho Man card.
You never know, right? It
could happen, especially in Florida.
Yeah, I know.
Matt, thank you so much for your time. I'm going to put you on the spot. When I come down to Florida, can we go toy shopping somewhere?
Well, we got to find a good spot. That's one thing. There's not that many good toy stores that I know about in the Orlando area, but you got to check out, if you go to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/MajorPodNetwork, a cheap little plug, watch the vlogs with Super Gabby. I think there's about 10 of them right now. That's the guy with the storage unit. Holy shit. That's all I'm going to say.